Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl, uh, back again for another TV show spoiler review, and we're here. We're wrapping up the last of the X-Men TV shows. It's been a long road, so we're coming at the end with it, and we'll be pretty soon wrapping up all the X-Men movies. So yeah, before we continue, please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow me in the links in the description below, my Twitter, Twitch, Patreon, Instagram, and let me know what you think of all, like, out of all the X-Men TV shows, which one was, like, how would you rank them, honestly? Because God, it's hard to keep my biases aside of how I feel about the X-Men 90s TV show, because that really was, that set the bar for what we got with the rest of them. So I'd be hard pressed not to put in like top tier. But I think between X-Men Evolution and Wolverine and the X-Men, as much as I think it's a good idea to have, like, most of the X-Men members are teenagers and get into, like, college age and all the other stuff. I think like Wolverine and X-Men set more of like a tone as far as like no, they're all adults, and they they don't need to go through high school life to go through like angsty drama or anything like that. But X-Men Evolution had more has like at least a few more years underneath its belt compared to the one season that Wolverine and X-Men had, which is, I swore, it at least had 2 seasons. But then we got X-Men Anime, which I gotta say, maybe X-Men 90s, and I got a slight edge to X-Men Evolution being the next one, considering it has more seasons. But then you got Wolverine and the X-Men, then X-Men Anime. It has to go in that kind of direction. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, this is just like a 12, just like the others, 12 episode arc, which actually kind of like they kind of added the cameos in this, but not like a full-blown cameo, more like a just like, oh, here's so and so in the background, no speaking lines, but you see them, which is kind of odd, because at least for a couple of them, you see, like, again towards the tail end of the last couple of episodes, was when things are like really ramping up, you see other parts of the world where Rogue and Colossus are helping civilians. It's like, why are you not with the X-Men? Like, they're like part of the main core roster, especially Rogue. But then you see like Nightcrawler and Deadpool helping out another part of the world, and then you see Captain Britain in London, and you see Iron Man helping out in New York. But these are like, I wouldn't say they full-blown cameos, they don't have no speaking lines or part of the episode, but this like, oh, character in the background. So you get like more of like a plethora of cameos, where in the others you only get like the one. But anyway, the season begins with, it's always that same old, I think they kind of ran this kind of, it's one of the most famous X-Men stories in comic book history, the Phoenix Saga. But I think at a certain point, especially when it comes to the movies, they ran that plot right into the effing ground. And kudos to X-Men Evolution, they kind of tease it what it will lead into in the future, but they don't play at it in the entire series. So kudos to them. But like every time we deal with the X-Men, they always gotta hop onto the Phoenix Saga BS, and they kind of milk that. They've been milked that, but when this first aired, we haven't reached to the point when it kind of got old. But the movies really play at it almost at every iteration, with every new batch of people, and it's like, oh my god, it's like, hopefully when the MCU starts really leaning into the X-Men, they leave the Phoenix Saga alone for a good long while, like not until at least 5 years into X-Men stuff, where you deal with other characters and their problems, and you build to the Phoenix Saga, and don't jump the gun on it. Because I think it's just like with the Joker. As great as the character is, if you keep relying on it like a crutch, it gets tired very fast. But luckily, it isn't about the Phoenix Saga in this, but it's just like you're coming into this show right as they're about to wrap up the whole adventure with the Phoenix Saga. And Jean self-destructs, trying to sacrifice herself to avoid the Phoenix from turning up like the globe, but the X-Men are looking on. You're dealing with like the Hellfire Club, and Cyclops is forced to say his goodbyes to Jean as he notices Emma Frost in the back of Jean, wondering if she's having a hand in all of this. But she explodes. A year goes by. Everybody's going their separate ways. Kind of like the same thing with the situation with X-Men Evolution in a way. I mean, not Evolution, Wolverine and the X-Men, where everybody going their separate ways, and they being called upon to regroup after Professor Xavier is getting receiving a call for his help from this Japanese couple that he knows personally, saying that their daughter has gone missing. And in this iteration, their daughter is this girl named Hisako, who will be known as Armor. Now, Armor is a Marvel character for the X-Men, but she's not Japanese in my recollection. Oh no, actually she is. I could have sworn she was like a different ethnicity. So like, excuse me on that part. Glad I looked that up and corrected myself immediately. And quickly look into her powers. A psionic exoskeleton. Armor can generate an enormously strong, powerful, durable, and impenetrable psionic exoskeleton armor around her entire physical body. It can be further enhanced by drawing more power, energy, and strength from the bloodline of her ancestors. This exoskeleton drastically enhances her strength, endurance, stamina, agility, and vulnerability and durability. Though she can only maintain it for short periods of time, lest the effort leaves her drained. In situations of extreme emotional stress, Armor can significantly enhance her exoskeleton's size, strength, agility, dexterity, and durability. But she can only do so briefly, as the strain can render her unconscious. The strength, power, and size of her psionic armor greatly enhances and increases tremendously when her relative dies. In addition, the body armor greatly heightens and strengthens the concussive force behind her offensively incredibly destructive blows. It makes her practically invulnerable and immune from a significant degree of physical harm and damage. To some extent, she can shape her armor, such as her ability to form Wolverine-like claws and make them extend outward. So of course, super strength, durability, invulnerability, concussive blast. Power limitation, weakness. Armor psionic energy exoskeleton is vulnerable to lasers as it has to let light in. And adamantium, due to its unique and special abilities and properties, such as Wolverine's claws, although he is not able to go through it with the rest of his body. In this case, she only remained uninjured because the distance between her armor's perimeter and her body was slightly greater than the length of Wolverine's claws. Cost of power. Armor's power increases when a member of her family dies. So that's just a caveat. So hope she had a large family in the past. So yeah. Hisako. So Hisako's gone missing. And the main, like there's at least a couple of main villains here. We're dealing with Mastermind, who you've seen in X-Men Evolution towards like seated every so often throughout the entire series, where he works underneath Apocalypse, and he seems like more like a wormy henchman. Here he's played more like a very straight-laced, more like a more elegant villain, like with some sense and purpose. In most iterations he played like a goofy, henchman, but he's a competent main antagonist here who has the power of illusions, who can cast illusions. And he was a member of the Hellfire Club. They call Inner Circle, but it's a Hellfire Club, which Emma Frost was a part of. But she seemed like she soon turned away when their methods are getting way too extreme for her. But you're also dealing with the UFOs, or U-Men, who are these scientist butchers who harvest mutant organs in order to try to artificially simulate said mutant's ability. They look like cyborgs, like you see from like Afro Samurai. It kind of looks like that. So Xavier assembles all the X-Men together. Psycho obviously has to be convinced to come back to the fold, and the one is not, clearly he was grieving, but the thing with Cyclops, where I want to say like simple for Jean, but it's just like he clearly he needs like some kind of counseling, or at least when Jean was alive, they both probably need some kind of counseling on like, okay, y'all love each other, that's great, y'all do anything for each other, that is great, but what are you independently from each other? Because clearly if you look at Cyclops, he just like, he withers. Understandably, if you're close to your partner like that and you fell deeply in love, and you two like got an inseparable bond, clearly it'll hurt a great deal. But it becomes like a problem when it's driven to the point where it's like nothing matters, like zero matters. You're like literally just standing in her gravesite and just like you just ain't trying to get out of that funk, or at least not making the steps. Not that you should try to just hurry up, get over it or anything like that, but just you're not taking the necessary steps to try to get over that hump where you know full well that your significant other would not want you to wallow in self-pity for the rest of your days. And it's almost like that in every iteration where like something happens to Jean and Cyclops is in like that, like a serious rut until he finds her. And you see that in Wolverine the X-Men, and you see that a couple of times in 90s X-Men. It's just like, you know, Cyclops is a utter, I mean, I don't want to use the word simp, but it's like he loves her. He's his, you know, that's his wife. So of course it's not just something he's just going to get over if something happens to her. But he needs to like have the tools necessary in order to be able to operate in case something happens. Same thing with her. But anyway, they get called to go to Japan to investigate the missing persons of Hisako, even though there's other people who's tried to search for her, but they end up going missing. So the X-Men jump in, and of course they run into obstacles of the U-Men. And of course Cyclops gotta like get his head in again, because he's like still not on the mission. His mind is elsewhere with Jean and everything like that. And they go, and because it turns out that there's not just Hisako, but it's a bunch of other mutant kids who disappeared. And they find this hidden facility where they battle one of the U-Men who Wolverine kind of ripped apart at one previous adventure one time. And they end up not only finding Hisako, but also another mutant kid who was a delivery guy that his employer did not know was a mutant, but saying all this kind of racist stuff and everything like that. Like, oh, no offense. I mean, I'm like, you know, I don't mean nothing by it. It's, you know, it's like, you know, I just didn't know, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, whatever, like racist. But then they not only find Hisako, but also find Emma Frost in one of these containers, because she was looking for Hisako, because before the parents reached out to Xavier, or at least they tried to, but Xavier probably was on like a different mission at the time that couldn't be reached. But they reached out to Emma Frost as the next best thing, and she was helping Hisako learn to develop her powers and all the other stuff. And while she was trying to investigate, she gets captured, and then this is, you know, in this iteration, she soon discovers about her second mutant ability of turning her body into a diamond. Of course, Cyclops doesn't want anything to do with Emma Frost, thinking that she has to have something to do with Jean's death, and given her shady past, isn't ready to buy into her story about what she been up to, even though, you know, Beast, Wolverine, Storm, like all understand, like, yeah, you know, what she says kind of lines up. And, you know, the Hellfire Club doesn't deal with this kind of monstrosity. And this is probably the only, you know, Marvel anime arc where the hero goes back to America briefly, but at least not stay the entire time in Japan. They quickly go back because to help train, you know, Hisako, because they, you know, bring her back, but not, oh no, I'm getting ahead of myself. But they bring her back to, you know, her family's decided to see her, but they had to, you know, say like, hey, we, you know, she needs to be trained. She has the, you know, her given her powers, you know, she needs to be able to utilize that effectively. So they bring her back to Westchester, to the Xavier mansion, and, you know, even though Hisako doesn't like the way Cyclops is treating her, he ain't trying to listen, but he's still a leader, so he's starting to train her, but he's going a little hard on her, but it's for a purpose. given the fact that he's, saying like, I'm going to go full tilt here, and I need you to actually fight me, because even though you think it's a simulation, or it's training, you need to take it seriously. It's like when you're on the X-Men team, we deal with life and death situations all the time. We need to operate as a team. We need to take every mission seriously, because every time we step out of this mansion, every day could be our last. So you need to be ready. It's like military in a way. You gotta take it seriously, even though she's trying to, like, it's kind of like with Miles Morales with like utilizing his shock powers or invisibility. It's like, you gotta be able to do this on command. You cannot just rely on just reflexes, or say reflexes, but just like, just like happenstance, or just like, as like a knee-jerk reaction. You gotta control your powers. No, don't let it control you. So she manages to gain control and be able to, fight toe-to-toe with Cyclops. And eventually Hisako learns about the whole situation with, why Cyclops is the way he is, because he lost somebody near and dear to him. But then Xavier extends invitation for Hisako to join the X-Men officially, but also extend that same invitation to Emma Frost, despite the dismay of Cyclops. But is Xavier's call, but he just still doesn't agree. So upon Xavier learning there still like some weird activity going on in Japan, where, because as he's trying to use his cerebro to pinpoint a particular spot, there's a dead zone. So this, what they did still didn't solve anything. So they had to go back to Japan, and he deals with another member of the UFOs, where, because he was studying how they fight in the previous altercation, he has this kind of big exo suit where he kind of like nullifies or cause the X-Men members' powers to backfire. Doesn't work so well with Beast, where he managed to put like a small explosive on the top of the back of the suit, dismantling it, so Hisako and the others can actually fight back and stop him. So they go further into the snowy woods, where they happen upon this cabin, which is also connected to like a underground laboratory led by this woman, named Yui, who Hisako starts to recognize, like, hey, I used to know you. I just can't figure out where. That kind of thing. Could, like, this is woman's like a play on the woman that Xavier had like a kid with, which we'll know to be Legion, who has like reality warping powers. Normally she's just like a white woman. Other iteration, in this iteration, she's like a Japanese woman. David Haller. That's his mother's name. Yeah, Gabrielle Haller. That is her. Yeah, she's definitely like a white woman in kind of like a main iteration, but here she's like a a Japanese lady. She kept the existence of her and Xavier's son a secret when she discovered how like he first manifested his powers. And it's like, okay, we can't, and almost like, put a bunch of people in danger, because she was initially making like a kind of like her own version of the Xavier Institute, but for Japan. But it didn't pan out because of the situation that arose where her son's power manifested. Takeo, that's his name, but in this iteration is Takeo, but in the main story his name is David Haller. Holla. So Emma Frost quickly picks up on Yui's like, kind of like you're not completely honest with us, because clearly there's a big dead zone right, and this this is the center of the dead zone. You mean to tell me you, as a scientist, don't know what's going on? But it turns out she and a couple of other lab assistants, like them being mutant, have been trying to find a cure to the mutant X gene. Now, she had like lofty ideals because, like, I'm not doing it in a malicious way. I've seen how you guys are persecuted, and I can't agree with Charles with his unification of human and mutant kind, mutant kind and mankind, because you can't change people's prejudices. There's always going to be somebody that's going to hate you, and they're going to try to do something to harm you. So to nullify that, I think it's just easier just to cure it. But, it turns out to be more of like a curse than a cure, because the lab assistants who tested it on themselves, or at least she got them to test it on themselves to, see if it worked, turned into, different monstrosities. One like a giant scorpion, the other like just like a hulking Goliath thing. They managed to make it out thanks to Beast's antidote, because there's a couple of other mutants that was being tested on who wasn't so lucky. And it turns out Yui hired the U-Foes because she didn't want to get her hands dirty, kidnap and essentially allow these people to harvest the organs of innocent mutant people. And she figured like, oh, I'm not doing it, so it's okay. It's as long as I get like the samples on my end, so I can continue my research. And it turns out one of the other third assistants turned out to be secretly Mastermind, who also was secretly using the U-Man to facilitate his needs, because he was secretly messing with or experimenting or getting inside the head of Takeo, while he was in this kind of bubble hidden underneath the lab, where you're trying to keep him safe from the outside world, and trying to essentially try to control the kid. But if we assume it came out of his control, he ends up getting killed by Takeo, who is just lashing out. He does not have full control of his powers, and Xavier eventually shows up after a brief, like, I'm not even sure if that was Takeo or just maybe Mastermind. I'm not sure. He was on the X-Jet trying to fly in to assist the X-Men, and he gets like, when he's in like Japanese airspace, he gets put in this kind of mindscape that he was about to lose, but thanks to some kind of echo of Jean, who's in the ether somewhere, because she shows up as a Deus Ex Machina for the X-Men crew later on when they feel defeated, and she gives them like that kick they needed to continue fighting, and she helps them out. And Xavier gets inside Takeo's mind, who's turned this kind of purple monstrosity and just lashing out on the entire globe. And he sees inside Takeo's mind, like, he believes that his father abandoned him, and clearly that wasn't the case. He just did not know about him. But thanks to Hisako, who used to be friends with Takeo when they were small, managed to calm him down, allowing Xavier to, set things right. But because of all that lashing out, it kind of overtaxed him, and I guess caused, Takeo to evaporate. And throughout this, Cyclops finally accepts Emma, realizing that Mastermind is the one who kind of put that image of Emma Frost in his mind, thinking she has some kind of cause to Jean's death. And it turns out Mastermind just wanted to F with him because he was just mad at Emma for leaving the inner circle. And clearly, like, Emma and Cyclops, become an item, but it then turns into like a thruple, then a quadruple, because it's like, Emma, Jean, and Cyclops on a Krakoa like a thing. But then it's like grew to a quadruple where you got Emma, Wolverine, Jean, and Cyclops all together having their quadruple coupling. So that solved that tension. I mean, like, because it was, I admit, going through the years, it was getting kind of tiring, at least personally for me, where it's like, oh my God, this, love triangle thing got so dull. It got so dull over time. And it's like, this is like a good way to just nix all that. Okay, all four of y'all just be together. And that solves that. That's that. You don't have to even worry about, like, Wolverine pining over Jean knowing he can't have her. No, now y'all can have each other. That solved that. I ain't mad at it. But yeah, I love, like, the animation in this. It's very, very well done. The actors all did a phenomenal job. It's kind of wish they kind of solved the whole situation with Cyclops' little personal grievance with Emma sooner. But yeah, like, fantastic work. Honestly, they all good, but the Wolverine I probably put last only because they pretty much taken the same story as you did with his first solo miniseries back in the 80s, and like what you see in, like, the Wolverine movie. It's like it's not beat for beat, but it's still heavily inspired. So it's like you probably see it at least a few times already when you look at it. But with Iron Man and Blade and X-Men, they're new stories. They built from scratch. That's why I probably like a little bit more. But that is it. And there's one more Marvel anime that I want to tackle, which is Blade, but I won't do that until around October when I'm covering all the Blade films. I'm not sure I'll do the TV show, because there was like a Spike TV show that only lasted one season, which I thought was dope, but I guess it wasn't dope enough to warrant multiple seasons. But anyway, if you've seen Marvel anime, X-Men, you check all of them out except for the Wolverine one. For some reason, it's not on Amazon Prime, but the others are, so you can check out those arcs and let me know what you think in the comments below. But yeah, it's probably one of my favorite depictions of Hank McCoy, aside from the 90s one and Kelsey Grammer's X3 version. And I like Nicholas Holt's Beast fine, but I think, Kelsey Grammer, 90s X-Men, and this is probably my favorite depictions of Beast and how he should always look like. But anyway, I will see you guys. Oh, well, let me go over like other ones. Like, I like I like their costumes here with like a, you know, like a tinge of the like a darker shade of blue with the yellow. Clearly there's a little inspiration from the first X-Men movie, but I like the look of Storm, the short hair, clearly very Halle Berry inspired. um I like this look of Cyclops, very anime boy. uh Very, you know, like probably, I wouldn't say the most accurate, but I love the heck out of this interpretation of Wolverine. So, you know, like you get to see his actual short height. He's not diminutive, but clearly he's like a half the size of Cyclops, and you can see that depicted. But I kind of wish we got, you know, at least a little bit more of the X-Men. You show Nightcrawler, Rogue, and Colossus. You might as well add them to the thing if you're gonna show them. But anyway, I will see you guys. I wanted to play a little bit more of FF16 tonight, but you know, this whole situation with the phone kind of took up most of the afternoon, where I probably should have took care of some chaotic lore video, like drafts for the next video. I'm not 100% confident if I'll have the new lore video out this Thursday like previously planned. It really kind of screwed me over on that one phone, but I'll definitely get to work on it, and I'll try to get it out to you as soon as I can. But I'll be back tomorrow for more FF16, because I got a lot more side quests that need to get handled before we get back to the main story. And I am very highly contemplating whether or not to, well, not whether or not, I'm definitely want to get Guilty Gear Strive, and buy that and start, like, you know, because I played a little bit of XR in my early years of streaming a couple of years ago. Didn't really stick to it, but after Evo this past week, and the people putting up their little Guilty Gear costumes, like, I want to like really like learn to get into some Guilty Gear, because I love the art and animation, and it's like, you know what, let me really get into it, and like, because I'm gonna do like a 12-hour long stream at some point in the future. I gotta find like a good date to do it, where I have like 2 days off in a row, so that way I can do from noon to midnight on from one day into the next, and then get some well-deserved sleep afterwards, so I can just like start crunching out some multiplayer games. Definitely want to do it before, because Mortal Kombat 1 is coming out next month, but October 19th, Spider-Man 2 Insomniac game is coming out. I want to definitely do the 12-hour stream before that comes out, because, you know, that game is going to take up so much of my time. But anyway, just look forward to that on my Twitter handles. I'll make the announcement when I'm going to do all that. So I might get Guilty Gear this weekend, maybe. I'm not sure. But anyway, I will see you all soon. Have a good night. Take care. Peace.